A day of mass chaos in the political circle. Ruling party leader Han Dong-hoon calls for the swift suspension of Yoon's presidential powers, signaling an about-face. Soon after, Yoon and Han met behind closed doors, followed by fuss and confusion at Parliament over the president's potential appearance there. The Defense Ministry rejects the rumors that there could be another martial law decree, saying any such orders would be dismissed. Over in Sweden, a special week begins to honor this year's Nobel Prize laureates, among which is South Korean author Han Gang. Tonight, we go live to the scene. It's December 6, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. We start at the Parliament yet again. Today, we heard something rather unexpected from the ruling party's chief related to the opposition-led impeachment move against President Yoon. We connect live to our National Assembly correspondent Lee Si-hoo. But first, Si-hoo, how's it looking there?
Right, Jung-min, the tensions are rising here at the National Assembly as we near the hour that the opposition plans to move forward with the impeachment motion to impeach President Yoon Suk-yeol. I'm standing right here at the hall that was raided by the armed forces just 2 nights ago to prevent any further emergencies like that. Tonight, the Assembly lawmakers and their aides are here on standby. Outside the parliamentary building, they parked up buses and personal vehicles to prevent any airborne troops from landing here tonight by helicopter. Outside the parliamentary building, people are gathering up more and more in real time to participate in a peaceful candlelight protest. Now, throughout the day, the rival parties held hours of emergency meetings. We're waiting for the results of both the ruling People Power Party and the main opposition Democratic Party's internal meetings. The PPP is taking a break at the moment. They say they have not decided on a consensus just yet. The DP meeting is ongoing. Now, this follows a surprise turn of events from earlier today. This morning, ruling party leader Han Dong-hoon, who had previously refrained from pushing for Yoon's impeachment, shared a slightly different stance, saying that the president needs to be suspended from performing his duties. Other PPP members also spoke out and urged the president to explain in detail his reasonings for declaring martial law. Early in the afternoon, Han Dong-hoon also visited President Yoon at his official residence for a talk. Han hasn't spoken much about the details of the talk, but said that the president isn't planning on any special action.
Right, Si-hoo, what do we expect to see from tonight until the vote?
Right, so the DP is firm on its plan to push forward with the impeachment motion. But as for the time, they've originally set up for 7 p.m. tomorrow night, but now they're expecting it to be a little earlier than that at 5 p.m. But this needs to be negotiated with the PPP. Now, this has been confirmed by the National Assembly Speaker's office as well, which say that the time is also tentative to change. Now, Speaker Woo Won-sik warned in an urgent conference this afternoon that in the event of another martial law declaration, the lawmakers would risk all they have to block it. Listen in.
We will, without fail, guard the National Assembly and democracy. I ask all public officials in their positions to protect the Constitution.
Who, during the conference, also asked the members of the military and the police to keep their place and dignity as citizens of South Korea. Jung-min?
Our National Assembly correspondent Lee Si-hoo, thank you. Up next, our Choi Soo-hyung walks us through the impeachment voting procedure at Parliament that looks imminent.
On Thursday, 6 opposition parties jointly submitted a motion to impeach President Yoon to the National Assembly. According to the National Assembly Act, the vote must take place between 24 and 72 hours after submission, which means it will occur between Friday and Sunday Korean time. The opposition has scheduled the vote for Saturday afternoon, appearing to have decided to wait for any objections from the ruling party. The Democratic Party explained that this delay gives the ruling People Power Party enough time to consider the motion. For the impeachment to pass, at least 2/3 of the 300 lawmakers, at least 200, must approve it. Currently, there are 192 lawmakers, the main opposition Democratic Party and others, who support the motion to impeach the president. This means at least 8 votes are needed from the ruling People Power Party for the motion to pass. As tactical moves continue regarding impeachment for President Yoon, if the motion passes in the National Assembly on Saturday, it will mark the 3rd presidential impeachment motion in South Korea's constitutional history, following Roh Moo-hyun in 2004 and Park Geun-hye in 2016. If the National Assembly approves the motion, the final decision on impeachment will then be determined by the Constitutional Court. Choi Soo-young, Arirang News.
The acting defense minister today dismissed claims of a second martial law decree amid related rumors. This comes as controversy grows over what happened earlier this week as several military commanders and intelligence officials speak out. Our correspondent Kim Jong-sil has more.
Acting Defense Minister Kim Sun-ho addressed concerns over the possibility of a second martial law order, denying claims raised earlier Friday, stating that they were completely untrue.
Even if there were any demands for martial law to be declared, the Ministry of Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff would never accept them.
Minister Kim apologized for the confusion caused by this week's martial law declaration. He pledged full cooperation with the upcoming investigation by the prosecution, including dispatching military prosecutors for a joint inquiry. Kim also instructed relevant agencies to preserve original documents and prevent any tampering with them. Later, the Ministry of Defense removed 3 senior military officers linked to the December 3rd imposition of martial law. The commanders of the Capital Defense, Special Warfare, and Defense Security Commands have been suspended. 2 of these 3 commanders have spoken out. In a YouTube interview with lawmaker Kim Byung-ju, Army Special Warfare Command Commander Kwak Jong-gun revealed that former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun instructed him to remove lawmakers from the plenary session and that President Yoon followed up on the operation. Capital Defense Command Commander Lee Jin-woo also stated that President Yoon contacted him to inquire about the National Assembly situation. Hong Jang-won, first deputy director of the National Intelligence Service, revealed that after martial law was declared, President Yoon personally instructed him to, quote, arrest everyone, clean it all up. This sparked controversy over a potential abuse of power. Hong made the statement during his appearance at the National Assembly, fueling even more scrutiny over the unfolding situation. Earlier, the presidential office denied any orders to detain lawmakers had been made, but quickly retracted the statement. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
Multiple agencies are ramping up their investigations into allegations surrounding Tuesday night's confusion. President Yoon faces accusations of insurrection, raising questions about constitutional violations and government accountability. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
The South Korean prosecution has established a special investigation headquarters to lead the inquiry into the allegations against President Yoon. This task force, made up of 20 prosecutors headed by Park Se-hyun, chief prosecutor of the Seoul High Prosecutor's Office, includes military prosecutors for enhanced expertise and will be established at the Seoul Eastern District Prosecutor's offices. The move reflects the gravity of the case, with President Yoon himself under scrutiny. This case stems from accusations filed by opposition parties and civic groups, and the charges include insurrection and abuse of power. Insurrection is an organized attempt to overthrow a government or its leaders, and a president in South Korea can be impeached if found guilty of insurrection as it violates constitutional law. Despite legal challenges regarding jurisdiction, the prosecution concluded that the case falls within their investigative authority due to overlapping charges. Meanwhile, the National Police Agency has launched its own 120-member task force to investigate the case. The police disclosed that it has received 4 separate complaints related to the martial law declaration, involving figures such as President Yoon, now former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun, Interior Minister Lee Sang-min, and top police officials. The police claims jurisdiction over insurrection-related investigations and has expressed its commitment to accelerating the probe. The Corruption Investigation Office, or CIO, is also involved, focusing on related charges like abuse of power. While the agency cannot investigate insurrection directly, it has mirrored the prosecution and police by issuing a travel ban on former Defense Minister Kim, who is accused of advising the president to declare martial law. Adding to the complexity, the Democratic Party has proposed a bill for a special prosecutor to oversee the case. A special prosecutor is appointed when there is a conflict of interest that could prevent the prosecuting authority from investigating a case, and the bill is expected to be reviewed in the National Assembly on December 10th. If approved, the special prosecutor would take over all investigative materials from existing agencies. However, delays could arise. The president's refusal to appoint a special prosecutor would not carry penalties, and assembling a new investigative team could take months. Experts warn that overlapping investigations could lead to inefficiencies and confusion. With multiple agencies now engaged in this high-profile case, the investigations into the martial law incident mark an unprecedented moment in South Korea's constitutional history. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Shortly after the president has declared martial law, armed troops were deployed to the headquarters of the National Election Commission. Questions are being raised about the motive behind this move. An Sung-jin reports.
The National Election Commission held an emergency meeting on Friday morning regarding the deployment of troops to the committee building after the declaration of the martial law decree. During the briefing, the NEC chairperson stated that around 300 soldiers had entered the committee building and that the troops were there for more than 3 hours.
The NEC is an independent institution, and what the troops have done is a clear violation against the Constitution. We will make sure to take legal action for what happens while making sure to monitor any additional damage.
This comes after troops headed to the National Election Commission only 7 minutes after the declaration of the martial law decree and an hour before the storming of the National Assembly. By a little past midnight on Wednesday morning, already more than 100 soldiers were at the Central Commission building in Gwacheon City and nearly 200 more at other locations. That's slightly more than were at the National Assembly. Employees say the troops entered the Information Management Bureau where personal information is stored.
Telephones were confiscated from 5 people that night, including night shift workers, and entrance to the building was controlled.
The Secretary General added that there were no missing items or data theft, but questioned whether the entering of the committee building is in accordance with the constitution of the martial law decree, as the NEC does not apply to those institutions that need to be controlled. Former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun told local media that the martial law troops entered due to the need to investigate allegations of election fraud. However, he did not elaborate on what those allegations are. The opposition party suggested that the move comes amid resentment from the last general election, which was won by the Democratic Party, and pledged to thoroughly investigate the background behind the attempt to take over the election committee. The NEC and National Assembly were the only 2 locations where troops were deployed, so the reason behind entering the committee building is raising further questions. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
In related news, the U.S. has reaffirmed the resilience of its alliance with South Korea amid the latter's political turmoil. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Yoon-ji tells us more.
Amid concerns about bilateral relations with the United States, South Korea's Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol on Friday held a phone call with his American counterpart, Antony Blinken. The foreign ministry said the 2 sides reaffirmed their commitment to the strong alliance between the 2 countries, adding that Blinken valued the strong resilience of South Korea's democracy highly and expressed hope that any future political disagreements will be resolved through peaceful and democratic processes. The U.S. State Department deputy spokesperson also said on Thursday that the partnerships transcend any particular president or government on both sides. When asked about the South Korean parliament's push to impeach the president, he called the impeachment motion an internal process and said the U.S. expected to be handled in accordance with the Constitution.
We continue to support the rule of law and democracy in the ROK, which we think are the foundational pillars of our alliance.
But he said many questions are yet to be answered and said developments in South Korea are being watched with grave concern.
What I can say is that we were not notified of President Yoon's announcement in advance.
White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan had also said the U.S. learned about it on television, the same way the rest of the world did. implying that the country was caught off guard by its key ally. He told a Washington-based think tank that it was a rather dramatic announcement and that the United States was not consulted in any way. There have been concerns that this week's martial law attempt may disrupt the alliance with the United States, after the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell said President Yoon badly misjudged his decision to declare martial law, in a rare criticism of a South Korean leader. Campbell even said the move had been seen as deeply problematic and illegitimate. Citing two U.S. officials, Reuters reports that U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin no longer plans to travel to South Korea amid the political turmoil. The outgoing defense secretary had reportedly planned to travel to Seoul and Tokyo, but he will skip South Korea and only visit Japan. Seoul and Washington also postponed a session of their Nuclear Consultative Group, which is their key nuclear deterrence talks, and canceled a related military exercise that was initially scheduled to take place this week. 배은지, Arirang News.
On the economic front, the local stock markets and currency fluctuated today as political tension heightens. Our Park Go-nu has more.
Markets are continuing to fluctuate in South Korea following the short-lived martial law declaration. The stock markets exhibited volatility in the trading session on Friday amid rapid developments in the political turmoil caused by the crisis over the impeachment of President Yoon Suk-yeol. Panic selling by individual investors during the day resulted in the benchmark Kospi closing at 2,428, down 0.56% from the previous session. The index initially started higher, but once tumbled to the 2,400 mark, amid ruling party leader Han Dong-un's calls for the president to be swiftly suspended from his duties. Han's calls were a change of stance from the day before. In addition, the tech-heavy Kosdaq fell 1.43% from the previous session, closing at 661. During the trading session, it hit a low around the 650 mark, the lowest intraday level in 55 months. The Korean won depreciated further against the greenback on Friday compared to the previous day, closing at 1,419.2, the highest level in more than 2 years. Amid continuous market volatility, Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok discussed measures to deal with the issue during an emergency meeting of regulators. The authorities said they will continue to oversee the situation with the 24-hour response system, monitored by a related task force that was activated on Thursday. During a meeting with several foreign chambers of commerce, Choi said he would ensure a stable investment environment for foreign companies, regardless of the political situation. On Friday, international credit rating agency Fitch Ratings stated that political risk in South Korea, which could last for several months, may see a drop in the country's investment rating. However, it added that the situation appears to be being managed due to the related regulators' prompt action, noting residual risk would not affect Korea's credit ratings by Fitch. Park Go-nu, Arirang News.
Strong shipments of semiconductors served to keep Korea's current account in the black in October for the 6th month in a row. Our correspondent Lee Soo-jin reports.
South Korea's current account was in the black for the 6th straight month in October on the back of strong exports. Preliminary data released by the Bank of Korea on Friday showed that the country's overall current account balance in October logged a surplus of $9.8 billion. After swinging into the red for the first time in a year in April, the current account balance has remained in the black for 6 consecutive months. But while October's surplus was larger than that of a year earlier and the third largest on record for the month of October, it was smaller than that of September. With this latest data, the current account surplus in the first 10 months of the year tallied up to around $74 billion. The latest figures for October were mainly driven by the goods balance, which tracks exports and imports of products. It logged a surplus of $8.1 billion, remaining in the black since April last year. Exports were up 4% on year in October to $60 billion, mostly due to the strong demand for semiconductors. And this marks the 13th straight month that outbound shipments have shown an increase, with chip exports surging nearly 40%. But the size of October's goods balance surplus was also smaller than last month's $10.5 billion as exports of oil products and machinery fell. Imports dropped slightly by 0.7% as inbound shipments of raw materials such as crude oil fell nearly 4%. The services balance once again recorded a deficit amounting to $1.7 billion, smaller than that of last month as the travel sector saw greater revenue due to an increase in tourists thanks to China's National Day holiday. When asked about the impact of the unexpected declaration and subsequent lifting of martial law on the current account balance, a Bank of Korea official said that it will be limited.
Current account balances are impacted by external conditions and policies as well as export performance. It does not yet look like it will have enough of an impact to change the overall trend, and the impact seems limited.
The Bank of Korea also projected that looking at the current trend as well as November's exports and imports, this year's target surplus of $90 billion will be easily reached. 이수진, Arirang News.
Over in Sweden, December isn't just a time for year-end celebrations. It's also the season to honor the year's Nobel Prize laureates during the highly anticipated Nobel Week. For this week's Arts and Culture segment, our culture correspondent Song Yujin joins us live from Stockholm to share more about the opening day. Yujin, what's the atmosphere like over there?
Well, Jongmin, I'm standing in front of the Nobel Prize Museum in Gamla stan, the old town in the heart of Stockholm. And as you mentioned, today marks the start of the Nobel Week 2024 here in Stockholm, which is a week-long celebration that will run until next Thursday. So as I'm speaking right now, we're seeing more people coming in, taking photos in front of the museum, and just absorbing this festive mood of Nobel Week. But it's not just Stockholm, Sweden. Over in Oslo, Norway, where the Peace Prize celebrations will take place, these two cities are gearing up for an exciting week honoring the Nobel Prize laureates this year, which consists of 11 individuals and one organization. And ahead of the week's opening yesterday, the press here, including myself, got an exclusive preview of what's in store for this year's festivities. First, take a look. For the greatest benefit to humankind. Those are the words of Alfred Nobel, the founder of the Nobel Prize, the prestigious accolade that has for over a century honored outstanding achievements in science, literature, and peace work. Every December, Nobel Week celebrates that year's laureates in Sweden, Alfred Nobel's home country.
It is an occasion where we put science and literature and peace work in focus. I mean, that's not done all of the time, and this is a week where we can really highlight these important achievements and reach so many people. So that is what the Nobel Week is about.
This year's Nobel Week runs from Friday to next Thursday. So I'm here at the Nobel Prize Museum where a press conference introducing and previewing the Nobel Week has just taken place. So the museum, as you can see, is fully prepared to kickstart the week-long event introducing this year's Nobel Prize laureates, including South Korean author Han Gang. There is plenty to enjoy leading up to the award ceremony on December 10th. Starting at the Nobel Prize Museum, there is the Nobel Creations exhibition. These dresses were created by first-year students at Beckmans College of Design in Stockholm based on their interpretations of this year's Nobel Prize winners.
And it feels like a big first step to have this publicity, and it's a great honor to interpret the prizes. And also that the Nobel Prize winners are going to see these creations.
This dress has been inspired by this year's Nobel laureate in literature, Han Gang.
It symbolizes that she's held like in a grip of silence, and then there is this hand coming in here, which is a sign of pain and relief. And hidden in the folds of the dress are texts from the books. There is a detail here of a burnt fabric and also broken seams around the dress, and it symbolizes the trauma of war.
Outside, the Nobel Week Lights Festival will bring a festive glow to the week with 16 light installations by artists, designers, and students from Sweden and abroad, illuminating Stockholm from December 7th to 15th. As for Han Gang, she will make a press appearance at the Nobel Laureate in Literature press conference on Friday afternoon, local time. Her schedule also includes visiting local elementary schools to meet students and teachers, discussing her work at the Nobel Reading event,
and of course, attending the Nobel Prize award ceremony and banquet.
Well, it certainly sounds like an eventful week ahead. While there are many activities planned, the highlight of Nobel Week is the award ceremony and, of course, banquet. Many are curious about what will be served at the banquet. Anything you can share with us?
Right. So, Tomino, food seems to always spark a great interest, especially when a big event like this comes with a grand banquet. And yesterday, the chefs who will be in charge of this year's Nobel Prize banquet were announced, and the first time in Nobel Prize history, 2 female chefs will be taking the lead. So the banquet chef who will be in charge of the first and main courses will be Jessie Sommerstrom, while the pastry chef who will be in charge of dessert will be Frida Bakke. And yesterday, these 2 chefs gave us a tiny sneak peek of what they'll serve at the banquet by introducing one ingredient that they'll use each. So for Sommerstrom, she will be using whole grains, specifically barley, and she even hinted at serving porridge for the first time in Nobel banquet history, according to the Nobel Foundation. And as for Bakke, she says that she'll be serving and using apples in her dessert. But the full menu and the specific dishes will be kept secret until the actual banquet starts, which will be December 10th at 7 p.m. local time.
We are waiting for the big day, and it's not just here in Korea, but many people are excited to see Hangang participate in this year's Nobel Week. Is there anything else you'd like to share regarding her schedule?
Absolutely. So the excitement is palpable here as well. So earlier in the morning, Hangang, along with other Nobel laureates of this year, came to the Nobel Prize Museum, which you're seeing behind me right now. Well, we're hearing that they're still inside the Nobel Prize Museum as we're speaking. So this is a long-standing Nobel tradition where each laureate signs a chair at the Bistro Nobel and also donates one personal artifact to the museum that best represents or symbolizes who they are as well as their major achievements. And we'll get to see an up-close look of these artifacts later today during a press conference in the afternoon. But what I think is a big grand highlight for today, Chongmin, is a Nobel laureate in literature press conference that will start within an hour with author Hangang herself, of course, attending. And this is especially significant and drawing a lot of attention as this marks Hangang's first press conference after being named as this year's Nobel Literature Prize winner back in October. But all in all, I just want to say, as a week is just starting, I'll keep on bringing the highlights as well as some major events for this year's Nobel Week. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Tongmin.
Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin live from Stockholm. Thank you. This weekend, it will get colder across the country. From tonight, the cold air will come down from the northwest, and the morning temperature in Seoul will be -3 degrees Celsius tomorrow and -4 degrees on Sunday and Monday. The western parts of the country are likely to receive another round of light rain or snow over the weekend. On the other hand, the East Coast is drying up. The dry weather warnings issued in eastern parts of Gangwon-do province were extended to the east coast of Gyeongsang-do provinces, including Ulsan. In addition, strong wind advisories are also in place. Please take extra precautions to prevent any wildfires. Tomorrow, Daejeon will start off at -2 degrees, Daegu 0 degrees. Highs will move up to 7 in Gwangju, Busan 10 degrees. As dry conditions continue, the risk of wildfires along the East Coast is expected to remain. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. And that is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.